It's episode 659 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm looking at how amazing Josh Jung has been doing since being called up to AAA, when he's going to make his Major League debut, and a big update on MLB Pipeline on the Rangers' top prospects, one that even made the top 100 after just being drafted. All that and more on Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Friday, August 19th. Your Rangers are 53-65. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way that you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. We're going to get into this week's games, which I don't think I've talked about barely at all on the show. We're going to talk about Josh Jung crushing it and a new MLB Pipeline Top 100, where the Rangers are right up there with one of the best systems in all of baseball. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, let's take a look at this week's game. There's a bit of a hodgepodge, a 4-game series split with the A's, some close games, including the first win of Tony Beasley's managerial career. Of course, it came in a 1-run win because, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't the Rangers immediately buck that trend right after firing their manager, who managed a lot of those 1-run losses, and then 2 days later firing their general manager? I've had a lot of thoughts on both of those firings. Just go listen to the rest of this week's episodes if you haven't already. That was very fiery, but a lot of my anger and words have been used up. I will have more about them probably next week, but lots of good stuff coming this week. But the Rangers could have done better on the field. They really could have, and I don't blame them for splitting a series against the A's when the entire organization feels like it's a little bit unsteady. I mean, the Rangers front office has been one of the more steady, one of the more, unchanging front offices in all of Major League Baseball. John Daniels held the job for 15, 17, nearly 20 years as the guy in charge of the front office. He's got several general managers out there off of his general manager tree, I guess you would say. AJ Preller is a disciple of John Daniels. Thad Levine is a disciple of John Daniels, and he is over there general managing in Minnesota, and AJ is in San Diego pulling off some wild and wacky things there. But this was a weird week, and some of the highlights from it I just want to touch on because I have not talked about them at all. But Simeon had his 18th home run of the season in the Monday game in a 2-1 win. Glenn Otto was pretty solid in this one, except for his command. His command was straight up awful. And the A's, no matter how bad they are always a very, very disciplined team at the plate. They always work a lot of walks. They work the crap out of their walks against Glenn Otto in this one. He only allowed 2 hits in it, and one of those ended up leaving the yard. He allowed 6 walks and just 1 strikeout. Now, against some other teams that are, better offensively, have a little bit more talent, then that would not really fly. They were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, left 9 on base, and I believe a lot of those were walks. Leody Taveras got his second triple of the season, and Brad Miller was the one to, Bubba Thompson was the one to single him in, had reached base twice on the day, had a walk, had a single, and an RBI in this one. But probably the most deflating game of the week, I'd say, was the 5-1 beatdown where Kohei Arihara looked like he was not going to be able to get out of the 3rd inning. But you know what? He ended up pulling it around. The Rangers offense just couldn't do a single thing against Sears in this one. He had 5 shutout innings against the Rangers. AJ Puck was the only one who allowed to run, which is surprising because he also struck out 3 in his 1 inning of work, and the rest of the bullpen was able to do work for them. JP Sears, who was, I believe, acquired in the trade of Frankie Montas, if I remember correctly. Yes, he was acquired from the Yankees along with Ken Waldichuk in that trade for Frankie Montas. Montas hasn't been as great for the Yankees as he was for the A's, but he was dominant against the Rangers in this one. The Rangers just could not put up much of anything offensively. Only had 9 hits in this one, but were never able to string them together. I mean, they were getting guys on base. They were not really able to score runs. Jonah Heim had the only RBI, had a double in this one, the only extra base hit. The Rangers just a bunch of singles and a couple of walks in this one, 3 walks actually to be precise. Pretty decent day for Leo Taveras. Reached base 3 times, a couple of singles and a walk in this one, but just nothing was able to be strung together. A 3-hit day for Nathaniel Lowe, who continues to be on a heater in the month of August. And Adolis Garcia, who, by the way, has a 15-game hitting streak, the longest of his career. And Nathaniel Lowe, I believe his on-base streak is in the 20s now. No, that was ended on the 17th against Oakland. But still, he has been performing fairly well, a 417 average in his last 7 games. That's Nathaniel Lowe with on base over 500 and slugging over 600. That is the definition of being on one. By the way, Adolis Garcia, during his 15-game hitting streak, has 59 at-bats, only 1 home run. Haven't seen as much power, but the on base has been much better there. 3 walks, hitting 322 in this 15-game hitting streak. On base 375, slugging 424. Does not have nearly as many home runs. Literally just the 1 home run in his last 15 games. I think the power will come a little bit. I think he's kind of exhausted because it's the end of the season, and we've already talked about how much energy he expands in just the regular average game. But I want to give a shout out to Kohei Arihara, who performed well. I think is probably going to be the one who sticks around in the rotation until John Gray comes back off the IL. It's not an ideal situation, but 5 2/3 innings of 3-run ball and 6 strikeouts, which was the really impressive part. I did not expect him to get 6 strikeouts, but he did, and that was honestly fairly impressive. By the way, after Ellis Andrews got released, he was picked up by the White Sox, so he is going to be starting for them while Tim Anderson is on the IL. Going to be very, very helpful for them, and also get to go be in a playoff chase, which he wasn't able to do while he was in Oakland, and his playing time was getting manipulated so that they wouldn't have to pay him the rest of his contract because, of course, the cheap A's were being cheap with Elvis Andrews. But now he gets to go be on a good team and go hold it down and be a good veteran presence in that clubhouse that could probably use some stability. And if the Rangers wanted to help him out by beating up on the Twins this weekend and getting the White Sox a little bit higher up in the AL Central standing, I'm sure he would very greatly appreciate it. But a not great start for Cole Reagans. Fine enough, 5 innings, 3 runs. All of those were earned. Did not have as much of an issue with the walks, which was very, very good. Very encouraging sign there. Didn't have as many strikeouts either. I believe both of the, at least 2 of the runs. No, all 3 of his runs came on home runs. The 2 home runs by Sean Murphy, who continues to be a real pain in the butt for the Rangers. Murphy had a 3-hit day, including a pair of homers and a double against the Rangers. I'm sure Texas would very much like to see him be traded away because, it's been a real pain facing him. But Shea Langeliers, who is a local kid who my one claim to fame is, or my one scouting win, I should say, was seeing both him and Josh Jung their freshman year play in a series against each other, and thought both those guys are going to be first-round picks and both those guys are going to be big leaguers. Well, Shea Langeliers is finally a big leaguer, and Josh Jung is not far away from making his big league debut. Coming up, we're going to look at what he's done in AAA since he's come back, what he needs to prove, and when he is going to be in the major leagues. But first, this episode is brought to you by Liver Health Formula. Did you know that key to sustainable weight loss is through your liver? Liver is the body's metabolic furnace. It's responsible for flushing out harmful toxins and igniting your fat-burning metabolism. But thanks to modern diets rich in unhealthy processed foods and constant exposure to thousands of man-made and environmental toxins, most of us have overworked livers. But now it's easy to rejuvenate your liver health and reignite your metabolism thanks to Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. Liver Health Formula contains 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract. All those work together to wake up a sluggish liver. No more bloated belly, no more tired and low energy feeling all the time. And best of all, Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long term. As a listener of the show, you can try Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get yourself a bottle of free CurbFit with your order. CurbFit is a safe, all-natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. This makes it the perfect complement to Liver Health Formula. Go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. Again, that's getliverhelp.com to try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your bottle of free CurbFit with your order. Go to getliverhelp.com/MLB right now to get started. Now, Josh Jung, we were talking about heaters. This guy has been absolutely on fire since coming back, and once he got called back up to AAA, he has just lit the entire world on fire. In 8 games so far, he's got a slash line of 424, 486, slugging 1,000. He is slugging, not an OPS. His slugging percentage is 1,000. His OPS is 1486, nearly 1500. Just absolutely bonkers stuff from Josh Jung at the moment. He's got 5 home runs in those 8 games. He's also got 4 doubles. He's also got 3 walks to 5 strikeouts. He's stolen a base. He has just done every single thing. And on Thursday night, he hit an I think it was Wednesday night, he hit an opposite field home run. He is going to get the day off on Friday. I believe he's going to DH on Saturday and then play Sunday in the field. Not exactly sure what the exact plan is for the weekend, but he is feeling comfortable. He is feeling good. He's feeling ready. The opposite field home run told him that, all right, I've finally got my strength back in my shoulder. I am to the point where I am fully healthy, which the fact that he was doing all that before he was sure he was fully healthy is absolutely monstrous. In 8 games in the Arizona Rookie League, when he was playing DH, also playing a little bit of first, he was also crushing it there. He had 3 home runs in 8 games. At that point, had an OPS of 945, and then just took it to a whole nother level once he got called up to AAA to actually play the field and be his fully formed self. Now, when do I think he's going to get called up to the major leagues? Well, if I had my say, I'd say like tomorrow, today, yesterday. The guy has been ready for at least the last couple days, but I understand there are a few more things they want to check on to make sure that he is actually fully 100% ready to play the field every day at the major leagues. And, even though he is annihilating every single AAA pitcher he's facing, including Dustin May rehabbing a couple times, who is a big leaguer and a very good one. He also hit a home run off of a rehabbing Dylan Betances, who has been released. He has been doing this off a bunch of different. Emilio Pagan, I believe, is another one of the pitchers who is rehabbing in the minor leagues that he hit a home run off of. This guy has been crushing every single player who's been put in front of him. But I think Wednesday is when they're going to wait to call him up, because you have to have 45 days on a major league roster to finally lose your rookie eligibility, or I believe 110 at bats. Now, I think they're going to manipulate just a little bit of service time, just a little bit, to make sure that he can have his rookie eligibility next year and compete for the Rookie of the Year award. Now, why should the Rangers care who wins the Rookie of the Year award? It doesn't really matter. Like, it's just an award. Like, they should know if he's going to be good, and they should want to see what this Rangers team can do under Tony Beasley, and they should give him the proper players for every single game of his managerial tenure to properly evaluate how good this team is with him at the helm. Now, I agree. I totally agree. But waiting just a smidge longer in this case, I still don't like it, but I get it, because with the new CBA, in case you forgot, which I did just a little bit, but in order to kind of help manipulate service time, which might end up making other teams do this exact thing and kind of manipulate service time. But if you have a player on your roster on opening day with rookie eligibility intact, and that player wins the Rookie of the Year or finishes top 3 in MVP voting, then I think also Cy Young voting, I think that would also count for pitchers. But anyway, if they do that, then either one of those things, I think maybe if they do both, then they might get 2. But anyway, the team is rewarded with a compensation first round pick. That is a big deal. That is very, very important. So I think Josh Jung has definitely got a good chance at winning the Rookie of the Year award next year. I thought if he was healthy this year, he'd have a pretty decent shot at it. It would have been some really tough competition this year, a lot tougher than I think it might end up being next year. Adley Rutschman is not going to be a rookie anymore. Julio Rodriguez, Jeremy Pena, none of those guys are going to be rookies next year. And so I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head who is going to be knocking down the door to win that Rookie of the Year award against him next year. Maybe a couple of guys that, let's see, look at these new top 100s. Maybe Grayson Rodriguez, maybe Gunnar Henderson. Those guys both for Baltimore might end up taking votes away from each other. I'm not exactly sure. But still, there are a lot of other good guys in not quite to the level of those 3 that have all been crushing it for the most part this year. So I think we're going to have to wait until next Wednesday to see him at the big league level. But there is one more guy who has been absolutely crushing it that needs to be mentioned. That is Forney's Mason Englert. Mason Englert is not a name that most casual Rangers fans remember. He's a 22-year-old right-handed pitcher drafted out of Forney, born in 99, and he was a fourth-round pick in the 2018 draft. He is one of the poster children who has been victimized by the deload program. He had only pitched last year was his first professional year, 2021. Yeah, because he had Tommy John surgery, and again, the 2020 season happened, so he didn't get a minor league season there. But it was fairly solid last year in 19 games, 80 and 2/3 innings, a 4.35 ERA, 90 strikeouts in those 80 innings. Not a whole lot of walks, just 26. And this year he has been a little bit better. He's been able to pitch a little bit more, and he has pitched no hit innings in his last, I believe, at least two of his last two outings. In the month of August, he has been absolutely unhittable. In 3 starts in August, he has a 0.45 ERA in 20 innings. He has gone 7 innings, and 6 innings. The last 2 have been of the shutout variety, of the no-hit variety. The one before that in August 4th was 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. The guy has been on fire lately. He is going to be Rule 5 eligible. His fastball isn't nearly as big, nearly as much velocity as you would think for a guy who is listed at 6'4", 206. I think he's going to grow into it just a little bit, but he is right on the cusp. And the Rangers are going to have a lot of really difficult 40-man conversations, decisions to have, and they might have to end up trading a decent amount of prospect depth and cut a lot of back end of the roster depth so that they can make sure to protect some of these guys like a Mason Englert, who, even though he might not get picked in the Rule 5 draft, they might want to protect him anyway. Coming up, we're going to look at some of the new Rangers in the MLB Pipeline Top 100, who is new in their top 30 prospects, and who are some guys you really need to keep an eye on for the future. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every single league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action happening right now. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, this week, MLB Pipeline updated their prospect rankings, their top 100, their top 30 for each system, and there are some new faces on the Rangers' top 30. But let's look at the top 100 first. The Rangers have 6 players in the top 100, which I believe was what they had at the beginning of the season. Some of those guys have graduated, including Ezekiel Duran. There are a couple of new names that are way higher up there, and and I think they are definitely deserving of where they are. I think a couple of them should be a little bit higher, some of them maybe just a smidge lower, but they're all very exciting. Josh Jung is the first one on that list at 39. Jack Leiter is at 48. Evan Carter all the way at 59. Owen White at 62. Justin Foscue at 82. And Brock Porter makes the list before throwing a single professional pitch at 94. Raiders have 6 players total. The only organization that has more is the Dodgers. They have 7. They're tied with the Cardinals and the Orioles for second most on this top 100 at 6 apiece. That is a solid way to make your name on this list and try to show the depth of this system. Now, some other teams might have higher ranked systems because they have guys a little bit higher up than the Rangers, which the Rangers, I think the Diamondbacks have a little bit better of a system, depending on where you're looking. Corbin Carroll, ESPN just named him their #1 overall prospect right now. Francisco Alvarez, the catcher for the New York Mets, who is probably going to be up. I don't know if he's been called up just yet, but I think he will be very, very soon. He's been crushing it in for most of the season, most of his minor league career. Gunnar Henderson, Corbin Carroll is the guy from the Diamondbacks, but the Rangers don't have anybody until 39. Now, this has kind of been their bugaboo with the system for the last couple of years. There haven't been as many high upside guys. There have been a lot more depth, and that's kind of been a intentional switch, because when the Rangers had the top 2-3 farm system in baseball, a lot of guys with high ceilings and low floors. A lot of those guys didn't work out when they had all those guys in Joey Gallo and Jorge Alfaro and Nick Williams and Lewis Brinson and Nomar Mazara. Even some of the guys with the high floors, like Nomar Mazara, didn't quite work out. Now Joey Gallo ended up being a multi-time All-Star. Will probably get selected several more All-Star teams. And Jorge Alfaro has been a solid big league contributor with the strongest arm and some of the best raw power that I've ever seen. But other than that, those guys have not really panned out as much for the Rangers. So they've gone a lot of times for safer picks. Now Kumar Rocker is not necessarily one of those safer picks. I think the second he starts throwing in organized baseball and starts looking like the prospect everyone thought he was heading into last year's draft, then he will rise very quickly up the rankings. Same with Brock Porter. I'm really excited to see what both of those guys do, and I'm still kind of annoyed that neither are going to be throwing a professional pitch during the regular season this year. I get why, but I'm still selfishly just a little annoyed. But the Rangers have some new guys on their top 30 as well. Like I said, Brock Porter is a new guy on there. They finally ranked him in there. They have him at number 6 in this Rangers system. They have their new top 10 looks like this: Young, Leiter, Evan Carter, Owen White, Justin Foscue at 5, Brock Porter, Luis Angel Acuna, Kumar Rocker at 8, number 9, Dustin Harris, and number 10, Cole Winn. They really, really dropped him, and it's been a rough season for old Cole Winn. But there are a couple other new names on here that you probably need to pay attention to. Emiliano Tayoto is a guy who I have been keeping an eye on as of late. I didn't know that he threw 102 miles an hour until like about a month ago, and because of that's the case, you really want to keep an even closer eye on him. He is a 21-year-old right-handed pitcher. He is listed as the number 23 prospect. He has not been on the Rangers' top prospects before. Texas signed him January 28th in 2020. And he is listed at 6'1", 165, but the guy has touched 102 miles an hour. He pretty much sits high 90s, even sits like 98 to 100, which is absolutely insane. Doesn't necessarily know exactly where his fastball is going, but man, neither do hitters. And for right now, that's pretty darn solid. They're keeping him as a starter. They signed him for $10,000 out of the Dominican Republic in 2020. I believe he was 19 years old when they did that. So another older signing, which is something that the Astros have had a lot of success with. Most of their homegrown starting pitchers that are in the rotation right now are guys that they signed when they were 18, 19 out of Mexico or the Dominican Republic or Venezuela that were just kind of overlooked. They had them signed them to these really small signing bonuses, and they've ended up really, really working out. And so I think the Rangers could definitely find some success doing that. They have done that with Emiliano Toyota, and another guy who they signed who was a little bit older at the time, who is new on this top 100 or top 30, I should say, is Alejandra Ozuna, a left-handed hitting outfielder who is signed out of Mexico. He is 19 years old. Rangers signed him in October of 2020, and he has been performing fairly well in high A so far. He has been called up there. He absolutely crushed it at Down East, had an 845 OPS there in 76 games. Not quite as high on the power numbers or the on-base numbers at Hickory, hitting 300 with an on-base of 327, slugging 400 in 13 games there. But he's performed fairly well, and he's about the right age for the league. I think they'll probably keep him in Hickory next year. Maybe if he does well, then they'll call him up to Frisco. But we shall see what they decide to do on that. But a nice indication of where the Rangers are at this point. Emiliano Tayoto has been one of the more encouraging stories from the Rangers minor league pitching this season, because there's not been a whole lot of encouraging stories. He's got 33 walks in 72 innings and 93 strikeouts to this point. Opposing batters are hitting 180 off of him, and his whip is 1.10, a 3.13 ERA. He has played in 19 games, started 14 of those games, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to stick as a starter if he can't keep his balls in the strike zone. There's a better way to phrase that, but that's just how it's coming out. It has been a whole week. But he's also got a plus curveball, and that is something that is very, very effective when you're going from 100 to 102 miles an hour, and then you drop in a curveball that is, I believe, in the, low 80s. High 70s. Yeah. And his changeup is 88 to 92 miles an hour. Yeah. Low 80s for the curveball. Changeup is 88 to 92, which is about 10 miles an hour off of his fastball, which is about where you want it to be. That's a very, very effective pitch for him as well. That should end up being average. The control has been not great, and he's probably going to start next year. Maybe he'll start next year in Hickory, and we'll see if the walk problems get a little bit worse there as the level goes up. I think that might end up being the case, or the Rangers will have some kind of mechanical tweaks to keep him in the zone more often. Because if they can, whoo boy, you have a guy with a double plus fastball, the best fastball in the system, I'd say, and a plus curveball and a half decent changeup. And if he can throw a decent amount of strikes, that is going to be a disgusting starting pitcher. Probably more likely that he ends up in the pen, but still, the Rangers don't have a lot of guys that are throwing triple digits in their pen right now, or even in their farm system that have the potential to start throwing triple digits in the pen with some nasty breaking stuff as well. So this could be a guy who, depending on how committed they are to him being a starter, which, seeing how impatient Rangers ownership has been about the Rangers not winning, he might be a guy who they end up sending to the pen in the offseason, or in the early on in the season next year if he can't get those walk problems under control at a higher level. But I am still, no matter what happens with him, having a guy who you signed for $10,000 as he's a little bit older come in and be a guy who throws 100 miles an hour, that is a developmental win, and it's something that I think the Rangers should continue to do because it's very low risk. We've seen it pay some dividends with the Astros so far, and I want to say there are other teams that are doing it, not as well as the Astros, because that's one of their huge developmental wins, and one of the ways that you find these ways in the cracks when they are winning as much as they are and having to trade some of these prospects for star players and not picking very highly in the draft. You have to find margins elsewhere where you can exploit and get better. And the Rangers, who have not particularly done well in the draft in the early years of John Daniels' tenure, even in the mid years, started to be a little bit better as of late. But anywhere you can find those little slivers of, hey, someone else is not doing this, so we can go and take advantage there. Also, you might steal a few of them away from the Astros, which would be another nice added bonus on this. But yeah, very encouraging state of where the Rangers farm system is right now. Like to see a little bit more high upside, crazy high upside potential future stars. I think Evan Carter is becoming that. I have to really consider keeping him putting him at number 3. Baseball America is always valued upside a little bit more, so that's why they have him number 1 overall. But I really do think Josh Jung, of these guys, of these position players in the farm right now, even though I really like Evan Carter, a guy with a back injury at his age, even though he's doing some incredible things, does scare me a little bit. And Josh Jung's incredible work ethic, his unquestionable obsession with baseball, is something that I see him outperforming a lot of the upside that scouts thought that he would have, because he's already done it so far, and he might end up being a 25-year-old rookie next year. But still, this is a guy who is really dang good. The Rangers are going to have control of him for a long time, and I think he's going to be a very big part of this Rangers offense for the next couple of years to come, and might be the key piece that takes his offense from okay to pretty darn good, even if they don't add anybody into the lineup during the offseason. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank you all so much for listening this week. This was one of the biggest weeks that we've ever had in the show's history. 6 episodes after only doing 4 last week. And of course, finding out in the middle of recording another episode that Chris Wheeler was fired, John Daniels was fired. Thank you all so much for listening. New listeners, old listeners, really appreciate it. Now, for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. Please just call him Sully. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.